Er zijn 3 dingen in het leven van een kunstenaar. Ten eerste, te kunnen werken. Ten tweede, goed te kunnen werken. En ten derde, de grootst mogelijke weerklank bij zijn publiek te vinden.
Who's afraid of art? Tyrants and wannabe tyrants, so it seems.
Artist Alexandra Skochelenko has been sentenced to 7 years in prison by St. Petersburg's invasion, spreading false information, disinformation.
With autocracy growing, with tyrants on the roll, Balie brings together over 40 international artists, writers and thinkers during Forum on European Culture. We celebrate the subversive power of art and literature and curate works of opposition that preserve the histories autocrats want to erase and imagine the futures they fear.
So my question is, Mr. President, what are you so afraid of?
Art against the tyrants. Not for the faint-hearted.
Yes, warm welcome to everybody. We're happy that you're here. This is one of the last programs, not the last, there's still more to come, of Art Against the Tyrants. We do that every 2 years. We try to have a forum on European culture. And this year we choose to do it under the title of Artist or Art Against the Tyrants. And there's a lot of performances these days here in the Balie. One of them is outside, actually. We've had the police we switched it on. It went live, I think, on Thursday at 12 o'clock, and in quarter of an hour we had the police here. They haven't been gone from our side since then. But also we are here to talk to Iswanto Hartono, one of the central artists of Ruang Grupa. We've been working with Ruang Grupa for quite some years now, and we've, among others, been doing a very big project with Hans van Houwelingen and Iswanto Hartono on Indonesia. And we are going to watch a prologue of a work of Iswanto. Very warm welcome to you here, Iswanto. We talked about this this project quite for some while. It's very personal in many ways. It's a very personal project. And also we're talking about how art can play a role in a conversation on colonialism and history. And in this respect, of course, on Dutch colonial history. And we're talking about empires. And the Dutch had some rather great empire, a big empire. So it's part of course, the idea of how art is juxtapositioned or positioned in respect to great powers and empires. Would you say that in respect to the Dutch colonial heritage, art in the Netherlands and maybe in Indonesia played a role in addressing that history, or is there hardly anything or a beginning with that?
Yeah, I would say, I think after, I work on these issues for a while, a couple of years, and presenting in various works. And I would say, that there is a sideways of opening to discuss this here, of course, and which I found it is, of course, it's important for the relation between two countries for a long time. Between Indonesia and the Dutch, and it's always been important, of course, to discuss this, because this won't end it in soon, but it's spanned many generations of heritage about not only memories but also violence and but also not only. There are not black and white, I would say, but I think I would like to always find a way to look in the middle to how actually as a generation who grown up with those impact of being in a post-colonial country.
And also, you've been. We came also across this cooperation because you've been a curator, and Ruang Rupa has been curator of Kassel, of the big German 5-year exhibition in Kassel. And we've been talking about this several times, about your experiences as an Indonesian artist being asked in Germany to curate a huge, maybe even their most important contemporary art exhibition, and that's important also in relation to the prologue we're going to watch. You said that, at least I observed, that I thought was rather interesting that in Germany you were criticized for inviting Palestinian artists into your exhibition. And in a way, harshly criticized, which I thought was amazing for the fact that they ask you, especially as an outsider, to come in and have new perspectives on that. Have new perspectives presented in that in the Manifesta exhibitions. Could you say something? I said Manifesta. Yeah, Documenta. Could you say? Could you elaborate a little bit on that experience as in Germany?
Yes, but there is my colleague here, Reza from Ruang Rupa, also was sitting there, and yeah, it's a specific question that you asked. I think it's, of course, I think. Then I will also elaborate precisely. I think. It's quite surprising and interesting for us to understand, because when we announce as an artistic director for the Documenta 15 in 2019, and not so long after the announcement was come in the newspaper, I think in the January 2020 already, there is a news headline in the German media that questioning why Ruang Rupa was chosen as artistic director, which is, of course, we came from the global south, and I think I remember that that's one of the first. The first question about why we are being there, and with intention, I think clearly that we came from the south, and then so it's, and we, of course, Ruang Rupa was not, we only, I think at the time we curate international exhibition in Sonsbeek in 2016. Here
in the Netherlands,
of course, and we are never appear as a curator in the Biennale or whatever in a prestigious kind of, but maybe it's quite interesting for people worldwide to see that who is this bunch of guys. I mean,
this group of this Ruang Rupa.
So, and it came even more sharper later on, because then the media start asking us when we, I think, launch the artist list, and then it came up another question why there is a Palestinian artist, as you mentioned, but there are no Israeli artists, and.
So there were Palestinians and Israelis. They objected to that.
So that's where. And then it's getting more even heavier towards the opening and so on. So we can discuss this later. But I think this can be as an introduction of
Yeah. And I also asked this because I was quite struck by the fact that you lived in Indonesia, most of your life, of course, and still are living, but now been traveling and living in Germany as well. But and being part of the Chinese minority in Indonesia, of course. Which probably nobody actually knows in Western Europe, but has been prosecuted earlier on, and even and sort of singled out later on. You told me that up until not that far away, you had Indonesians of Chinese descent had a different mark in their passport. Is that right?
No, it's not in the passport. But we should have another document, which is called a certificate of citizenship, to be able to apply for the school and so on, and the university, to get married or to get a passport. Mm-hmm. And it's happening since 1959, but it has been disapproved in 1996, but interesting because the practice when I was entering university and so on, I was in 91, but those practices still actually underground, still in the local bureaucracy still exists during that time, and it was again it's repeated to implement this dismissal of this resolution still during our fifth president Gus Dur, which is also make a strong statement that this has to be removed. But the news, actually, the fact that in some local areas, in some different places, of course, it's reduced, not like in the time when I was grown up, but now it's slightly disappeared. But I don't know if it still exists in some areas, but probably yes.
Yeah. I'm asking this also because we're going to look at your work. And that's partly out of your family archive of photos.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah. What are we going to look upon? What's the?
Actually, it's not the end result. This is a preliminary research that I did a couple of years ago. I mean, it started with archive, which I think my father photo archive actually, which he's a kind of amateur photographer, and at the age of 15, he gave me a present of a small camera as well to me, and I always love photography. So when I look back to those pictures that my father took in our family's everyday life, whatever. So, and to think about actually what the colonial legacy has been part of, also important traces toward the New Order, because I grown up in the New Order regime, and I try to look back more actually what kind of can be intersection of those a time which is phrases in the photographs, but also happenings in everyday life when I grown up as a child, as a teenage, and also to rethink of what actually happening today in the geopolitical world, which is still, I think, the world. I mean, it's not that far from where we started as a nation in 1945. So after the end of the colonialist era, but somehow it's been interesting. I mean, when I follow this discussion in the morning, also
on Germany, we did hear.
Yeah. Yes, of course, but also I think we talk also during the Tino. I think also that there are still a line which the power structure. I would say that it doesn't change so much, which is centered on the colonial power of
power structure from about a century ago, you mean?
Yes.
Didn't change that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
No, no. Shall we have a look at your work and then continue the conversation? Is there anything we need to know before that while looking at it, which you want to point out?
I think it's quite a good introduction for the films shortly, and then we can discuss.
Okay.
Afterwards.
We have a look. It's 20 minutes, and then we will be back here. Yeah.
Wujudnya tak rapi, tak berantakan. Dekorasinya pun cukup lumayan. La la la, la 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 la. Ayo, Mel.
Tanggal 8 Juli 1976 di Florida, Amerika Serikat atau tanggal 9 Juli tahun 1976 di Indonesia merupakan hari bersejarah bagi bangsa Indonesia. Palapa 1 diluncurkan dengan sukses. Berbeda dengan satelit Palapa A1 dan A2 yang diluncurkan dengan roket Delta, Palapa B1 diluncurkan dengan Space Transportation System STS-7 Challenger, suatu hasil pengembangan teknologi luar angkasa Amerika Serikat NASA yang menggunakan pesawat ulang-alik. Salah satu catatan menarik dari peluncuran Palapa B1 ini ialah pelepasan satelit dari pesawat ulang-alik Challenger. Tanggal 8 Juli 1976 di Florida, Amerika Serikat atau tanggal 9 Juli tahun 1976 di Indonesia merupakan hari bersejarah bagi bangsa Indonesia. Palapa 1 diluncurkan dengan sukses. Berbeda dengan satelit Palapa A1 dan A2 yang diluncurkan dengan roket Delta, Palapa B1 diluncurkan dengan Space Transportation System STS-7 Challenger, suatu hasil pengembangan teknologi luar angkasa Amerika Serikat NASA yang menggunakan pesawat ulang-alik. Salah satu catatan menarik dari peluncuran Palapa B1 ini ialah pelepasan satelit dari pesawat ulang-alik Challenger dilakukan oleh antariksawati Sally Wright. Palapa generasi kedua ini selain digunakan untuk keperluan domestik di Indonesia, dapat pula digunakan sebagai satelit regional ASEAN.
musik lilin banget. Luar biasa murah musik lilin. Kayak gini ya mari.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Asyhadu an la أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
Ya, saudara penonton, sekarang tibalah saat gerhana matahari total.
Ini di Borobudur, jadi antara Jakarta. Di Semarang katanya.
Dekat Semarang.
Dekat Semarang ya. Nah, kita Borobudur.
Terima kasih telah ke Willy Karamoy. Damas melaporkan langsung ke mengucapkan terima kasih, dan sebentar lagi kita temui Telangke Willy Karamoy di stasiun Pusat Jakarta untuk selanjutnya menuju ke Tanjung Kodok, Jawa Timur.
Tapi dari Borobudur kami kirim gambar itu bukan melalui satelit. Tetap melaporkan dari pelataran Candi Borobudur, dan 5, 4,
Berpindah bola sekarang bagi Ivana, masih 0-0. Ivana serve. Keluar.
1-love.
Angka pertama diraih oleh Ivana dari Indonesia. Ivana serve. Keluar.
Service over. Love 1.
Berpindah bola sekarang bagi Helen Truk yang akan melakukan serve kepada Ivana Lee. Bagus sekali. Masuk bola yang mengambang
Service
dan
over.
tadi
1-love.
chop saja oleh Ivana dan masuk. Berpindah serve.
Semoga peluncuran ini dapat berjalan dengan lancar dan saudara pemirsa tentunya kita juga membutuhkan selain teknologi satelit.
Sekarang sudah terlepas alat pengkaitnya. Ya, hitungan mundur.
Oh.
Sudah muncul. Di situ terlihat motor utama dan 6 motor kastor menyala, dan ini menimbulkan tenaga dorong lebih dari 200.000 pound. Dan kita amati dari kamera masih juga terlihat arah itu menuju ketinggian ke arah timur. Ya. Dan roket ini ya sudah, tetapi kalau pada 5 kali masih ada hal-hal lain yang kurang memungkinkan, maka akan diambil 7 pada putaran ke-7, dan penyalaan apuji cake motor ini akan dilakukan di Cipinong.
Yes, Iswanto, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, first, I mean, sorry, but this actually, what you see is not the final version. But it's
close. It's very close.
It's close, but yeah, there are a few which I edit, especially on the text and the editing of the sound.
But now that we've seen this one, it's you call it a prologue, huh?
Yes, it's a pretext, something. Yes.
Yeah, which you would elaborate and work on later on. Hmm?
Yeah,
but
that's the intention. Yes.
But we're seeing here a collage of photos. Actually, a lot of them made by your father, of you and your family.
Yes.
Hmm? Why did you insert them in this story on the 80s? Is there a straightforward reason or something we need to know about that?
Because there were, I think it's easy for me to approach, because also I think it's important for me to see what I've been through all those years when I grew up, and because it started actually from the house that you see. I mean, it's not only about, but also I very like to elaborate on the space and time, how actually also which is captured by photographic tools, but then how actually this can have a reflection on times and a journey that I've been passed through until today, and especially on those. I mean, why I elaborate with this kind of satellites and so on. I mean, at the time, it's the only things we know and we connect to the other world is through the television, which is very much controlled by the regime. So everything is just censored through whatever they really want to
show
people. And then there where actually we are connect to the world and see. And I was very interested. I was very amazed with those kind of technological things, which I think at the time Indonesia was trying to be a leader in Southeast Asia at the time doing so. Like Falapa was one of the first satellite that has been owned by the Southeast Asian country, for example, something like that. But behind that, actually, there is a lot of, for example, those also. I'm very amazed with those eclipse, the solar
eclipse. Yeah,
I think it's quite
film van de Borobudur.
Special. It's a total solar eclipse, so it's quite rarely happen. And then, but I remember because actually we are at the time the regime was really have a very strict rule order that people are not supposed to see it alive. Although of course, there are so many tools to see it, because then they make rumors that you can be blind, you can be killed, even lots of, because in Javanese tradition that eclipse happened when these big demons, they call Batara Kala, eat the sun. So that's the Hindus, influence the Javanese, and then Suharto is very much. I think he's very mythical Javanese person who believes in this kind of myth, but also he used it to many analysts say that actually he tests his power to the people, because it's 83 is already around 25 years when he in power. Mm-hmm. So many political analysts say that actually he tried to test this phenomenon that people still obeys his
rule.
And then, but people are really, I mean, many people even hiding under the bed during the eclipse, and we are just watching from the television at the time.
Instead of outside.
Even said outside, yes. So outside is totally empty. Nobody was outside.
Because he did not want anybody to look at it, at the real phenomenon.
Yeah.
Because because of this mythological idea that it's dark demons doing this, but you suspect also to test whether the population was still obeying his rule.
Yes, but also to create because that's always what he did. The regime liked to create a fear.
An atmosphere of fear.
This is one of the
one of the examples.
One of the examples of that actually he built through all the years. And so I use that also because I'm interested to. For me, this phenomenon is really like I'm waiting for it actually at the time when I was a kid. I remember. I mean, to see the eclipse. I mean, though at the end I see it on the television, but it's one of the important moment that I remember. And of course, I mean, some of the clips show the badmintons. I mean, that's also a part of instead of what Iswanto allow that those kind of, but it's true. I mean, badminton is one of the national building project, of course, for us, which is very important because we are very good at that. So the regime will show everything is, but it's also a part of when I used to spend time with my parents, let's say, to watch the game on the small TV and so on. Yeah, so.
It's also this whole idea, of course, of not being able to look at the sun, not being able to look at power, of course. As if you would say that the president is sort of the son of the Indonesian archipelago, you're not allowed to look at it. That's what it actually the association for me was.
Yeah, of course, indeed, totally. That the analogical is precisely on, but also he's afraid that this will become karma for him. So even he actually was really like hiding inside the house. So with his family, there is a few footage of him which I cannot get from
the TV archive.
From the TV archive about Suharto, but also about the riots. So actually, which is happening. So I tried to get it, but it's not allowed to.
You're still not allowed to get the footage.
To get the footage, yes.
Because this is all, and then in the front and the back there's this ethnic violence, of course, which you sort of only slightly put into, but that's the background of it, of course.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean. For me, yes, this was quite. I mean, I tried to look into it quite sometimes through all the years when I remember our house was thrown by stone and all the glass was broken and I was so small, and we are hiding. So every time there is a riot, so we are just cautiously wait and but we just. Nothing to do because we just wait that all the glass broken and the next day my father just changed and changed the glass whatever, cleaning up, and we cleaning up the house, and then everything is back to normal. But then couple of months or years when things happen, the same things again, then we did the same things again. So actually so this kind, I mean, this resilience from my father, I saw. I mean, but it's resounding again now with me. I mean, being when I see of things happening, especially these days with. Yeah, I mean. all this oppression, suppression which is happening and around the world, and yeah, it's quite a deep wound inside my.
Mm-hmm. I imagine for a child to have his parental home, being attacked, your safety there in your family must have been very, very striking experience, of course, for children. Yeah.
Yeah, this regime was special. I think he's very smart. I think he's grown up. He started actually as what you call it. He's selling a rice from one of the Indonesian Chinese who later on, when the regime was rise up and in power.
Mm-hmm.
So this Chinese merchant Lim Shuliong, who started in the very early when Suharto was a very poor army soldiers, is selling rice from him, and then Lim Shuliong now is become, when he's in power, then also he gains lots of economic from, because then he's become one of the tycoon of the economy. Is the owner of the Indo Group, who owns the Indomie, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
But everything's derived from the wheat, from the upstream to the so everything he owns. So he's become one of the biggest
richest
at the time, during 40 years ago. And Suharto also tried to. So he's playing nicely to gain economically from all those. I mean, so at the time, all the Indonesian Chinese cannot go to the army, cannot go to the politics, cannot go to civil servant. So yeah, they just become a merchant.
Yeah.
And
they're excluded from all those places in society. So the only place to go actually is being a merchant. Huh?
Yes,
Yeah.
and then Suharto actually, and with the family, he gains many benefits from them.
Mm-hmm.
And but everything's when there is so, but this minority always being a scapegoat for, because in 1965, during the genocide, I mean, when he's getting his power by I would say a coup.
Yeah, Suharto's coup in 1965,
which is supported by,
which was a lot of ethnic violence and a lot of people killed.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah,
Western powers and so on. So I think, and Indonesia, since that, actually Indonesia was very much lots of Western powers when economic, not only, but military, economy, investment, whatever, is went in, but also exploitation is
coming out
heavily. I mean, because
so you're saying Suharto was heavily helped by Western interests to put down his regime.
Of course. Yeah. So we're actually,
and one of the mechanisms was scapegoating minorities in order to keep in power.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And if you remember that, not long after Suharto in power, one of the biggest gold mining in Papua was taken over by U.S. company.
Mm-hmm.
So it's maybe even 40 years it was run by them, and it's not owned by.
So could you go as far as calling that sort of a neo-colonialist by an American company taking over the gold mines, through the new regime of Suharto? Is that sort of what you could put as a frame?
That's one of the things. Also, of course, military weapons, equipments, whatever it came from Germany,
Mm-hmm.
U.S., but also I think the Dutch was quite because
instrumental. Yeah.
Instrumental also during Suharto era, because the Dutch give lots of money also to the regime. And I think there is a certain period where the money was flow freely, and so to keep him, of course, in power. I think, there are still many things that I need to
work on, to elaborate,
to tie it up with.
And there's another interesting. I mean, there's so many interesting aspects about this, and the mechanism of staying into power, being a great power, but then blaming minorities in order to stoke unrest and actually kill a lot of people. But you also said working on it now. This year, and you were not able to get all the materials. Is it still sort of impossible to tell this story, to show these images?
To get the material, yes. I think it's not so easy. I think especially dealing with that. I'm just quite surprised also. I mean that because after the regime fall in 1998. And the Reformation era was
new order.
The new order was fall, and then the new era was Reformation. We call it. It started, but it's pretty free for. That's why actually in 2000 where Ruang Rupa was founded not long after the regime fall. To I think many, not only Ruang Rupa, but so many. People and new collectives, whatever they start rising up, because then there are freedoms for the Indonesian. But recently, I think there are quite people are worried now that the new regime which has been appointed, I think it's become even more authoritarian. Is back to the. I think there is already a lot of censors to the archive, especially even for foreigners, but also for Indonesians.
You're not a foreigner, of course.
No, but also for Indonesians.
Yeah.
And as I've written now, so there is a new attempt to change the history book. Recently, now it's hot debate there that. The Ministry of Culture wants to change the history book to rewrite, and in order that he wants to erase some of the fact that, let's say, for example, one case with the rape of mass rape that happened in 1998 tragedy, which is mostly the victim was the Tionghoa, the Chinese Indonesian at the time.
You'd call it a tragedy, but also officially sort of call it tragedy, which is, I think, sort of a euphemism for mass killing, isn't it?
No, this one is the 1990 tragedy where actually, of course, there are many people died, but we always call it 1990 tragedy. And in 1965, we call it 1965 genocide, and then so.
Yeah. Maybe to close off and open up for some questions, if there are. I asked you at the beginning about your experience in Germany with the Documenta, because also we heard a little bit about that this morning on the debate on German foreign policy. But what struck me when you told me all this and when you're working on this is that. In some strange way, your personal history as belonging to a minority and being sort of an excuse to be prosecuted or the windows broken by the house of your parents, and being used as a scapegoat for a regime reminds us as Europeans quite strikingly, of course, of what's happened to the Jews in Germany. And being sort of in the same societal position in that respect, also being accused of trading and like the Jews were, and these sort of tropes. But then being asked to curate an art exhibition and suddenly being accused of anti-Semitism. That struck me as very sort of, well, to say the least, ironical and very unfair. How do you look back upon that, and in the light of your work of art and personal story?
Yeah, before that, maybe because I think I tried to mention, for example, that this oppression to the minorities there, what happened actually is also rooted back to the colonial era, because in 1740 already there is a massacre of the Chinese ethnic in Batavia.
In Batavia, yeah.
By the Dutch. And it's always been maintaining since that the Dutch created social segregation. You know, there's the white man, there's the yellow man, the Chinese, and there is the locals. So all those things which actually never been exist before the colonial era. Even the history was written that lots of actually Jews merchant who lives in and who arrived to Indonesia before the Dutch, and they were there. So the word anti-Semitic has never been in our glossary actually.
No.
So it's arrived when the colonial era, and then of course there's lots of even the Jews who come to Batavia for as a merchant and so on, and there were actually the words came into our glossary as the words. I think historically Indonesia, we never had a history of being anti-Semitic to Jews and so on.
No.
And of course, what happened in Documenta is dreadful. I mean, it's I don't know the words to say it for. It's so painful. I mean, of course, for everyone, for us, being accused as anti-Semite, because I think there's never been. I don't know, but here because we discussed also this in the. I follow this early discussion, no. This perspective, what I would say that is still framed on the Western perspective of let's say also the singularity of the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Which just seen from one, I mean
angle. Yeah.
Yes, of course. What happened in Indonesia with the 1965 genocide, which is supported by its U.S., CIA, British. Also the Israeli agent, which is a part of. There's lots of risks which is mentioned about that, and yeah, the numbers is. I was so because the discussion always back when it's. I think how many numbers that need to change this kind of perspective, you know. I mean, not only seen from one side, but you have to see lives is not matter there on the south, but it's matter here in the north. So
yeah, they matter
millions
less.
People killed there, whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't care for. I mean, even what happened now, also in Gaza, whatever. Then people.
Yeah,
there's it's huge millions number will be, let's say 1,000, but it's not only now, it's spanning 70, 80 years. So, you know, Indonesia, same. I mean, what happened in the colonial time, 200 years, I mean, I don't know how many, if we call it. And after the 1965 also, we just, within the legacy of the same attitude of colonialism and backed by the Western is, in a year, then it's more than 5 million, 4 million people are dying in 1 year, let's say.
In 65, yeah, nobody actually knows, but it's in the millions. Yes, yeah.
And acquisition which came to us, of course, it's just very stupid, I would say.
Came to you as you Ruang Groepen, you mean the accusation, yes. Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
It's I don't know the words to express, because it's really, it's really hurt for us inside. And maybe to cut short, because to explain those and to discuss those kind of, whatever, entangle between. But I just wanted to say that it's happening even before, actually, because it's happened in 2022. So even not what happened with the war today, whatever there. But yeah, so those the operation of the colonial attitude and mentality still very much exists in today's geopolitics of the European countries, I think I would say. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your work in the first place and your personal insights and feelings as well. Thank you very much. Maybe exactly that was what I was going to say. Thank you, Iswanto, for.
Maybe Reza want to add something.
Maybe not. It's a possibility. You're not obliged to. If there's anybody who would like to say or ask something, yeah, you. Yes, but no. But there's a live stream which is better. So I will hold it for you.
Yes, I thought it was very impressive, your movie, and I wonder, are you able to show it in Indonesia now? Will that be possible?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, even with the regime change now with Subianto. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I. Yeah.
That's interesting. I was thinking the same, actually. Yeah.
I just want to make a small remark about the fate of Ruang Groepen's reception in Germany. That was very much tied to the blame of anti-Zionism, but that was also tied to another aspect that I think is important. You brought a really different curatorial model to the exhibition that undid the economics of it behind the art market. You brought in this diverse and automated deconstruction of curatorship, which already also undid the market economy of who is in. There's a fly buzzing.
I hope it's not a documentary, but
it also it attacked the market system of the art commodity and the role that galleries played in it, and museums, and the city council that it directs Documenta in a sense. So I just wanted to state that this economic aspect correlates with the blame of anti-Zionism, which is in total a neo-colonial bridging between cultural phenomena but the economics behind it.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for seeing it. Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking at you. But did you want to ask a question, say something? But no.
The situation, I think, with this new president, Prabowo, he was a general under Suharto. It's changing. He's trying to implement some old military laws, but as far as my impression is, it doesn't really have this kind of severe control of the community as it had in the time of Suharto. Does it?
Sorry, Hans. What? Sorry, can you repeat one more?
Well, I just want to say that Prabowo, now the new president, he installed some new laws and things are changing a bit towards a new military regime. But let's say the impact of it is not comparable to what happened in Suharto times, no?
Not yet. We don't know. He just started, I mean, a couple of months ago, so, and he still have lots of time to do it, let's say. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not suspect that he will be even worse, or we will wait. I mean, everyone is waiting now that what will happen next, but yeah, but there is already a few sign which is worried us. Let's say there is a banning of exhibition and musician, and there is a terror to the journalists and so on. So, which is in a very similar mode during the regime. So, but this is only the beginning, no? So we don't know.
The day is young. That's sort of yeah. There's two more questions, I think, and I'm coming over here with you.
I would like to add something to what you were saying. There is indeed a lot of control on the countryside. There are military officers, babinsa, in every village. So that is very similar to what was happening in Suharto times. There is being rolled out a whole expansion of the Korem, right? So the military regional bureaus. So it's back into the territorial control of the army. And many civilian posts and tasks are being taken over by the army. So what you are saying here, this is very much ongoing. It has just started. The rewriting of history is, of course, a very bad sign, in which what you call the genocide of '65, which I agree on, is being ignored. The 98 things are being ignored, but also many other human rights violations are being ignored. So it's a rewriting, it's a whitewashing of military history. And what we will see in the short time is there's just now being discussed next week also in Parliament the new broadcasting law, which is an enormous surveillance mechanism in which even social media are being controlled. So the control is very much back, and it will be, I think, in the short time, be much worse than it had been under Gus Dur, which you mentioned, right? I think under Gus Dur, it was the most free period in Indonesia.
Thank you for adding that. I think there's a last. I will come to you.
I just wanted to comment on the work. I was trying to understand how autobiography, in the case of people coming from countries like yours or mine, can become a very strong political tool. Because you tell the story of lack of democracy and repression and coloniality and violence, most of all, through your life and through those old pictures. And that is like a very beautiful tool for the invisible to become visible. And that's when our stories become political stories, not necessarily because we make part of any kind of political uprising, thank you. But because that parallel story makes it very political, an autobiography. So I would just wanted to tell you that, because I find it like it's a very poetical and very strong way that you were telling that story. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I have to agree. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think I need to do a lot of research still but I think this is where I started actually a couple of years ago, which is never been finished, and it's very hard. The more intimate for you, then it's the more difficult to work with. So, but thank you for saying that.
And if I might ask, where you say our countries, but you didn't.
I was born in Ecuador, and the first 10 years of my life was under dictatorship, and now there's a lot of struggle with all sorts of authoritarianism and criminalizations, and
recently quite badly, actually. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear. Yeah, I think, unless Iswanto, you had any last comments or anything we forgot we need to say.
But I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, of course, to show my works also for the Balie, but also everyone who comes. Yes, thank you so much for coming and give critics and comments and discussions. Yeah.
I'd like to add to that, thank you for working together, and I thank Annika Rijns also for, and the Van den Ende Foundation to be able to work together on this art project. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for showing it, and I agree, this personal way of looking at history and putting yourself in it and your family and your personal experience and this sort of big picture with even the sun in it, I'm really impressed by it. Thank you very much, Iswanto. It's a great pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah.